you're relatively safe if you aren't like trying to like get into someone's drug turf or whatever. Missionaries especially, like we felt pretty safe. The two things that were the most dangerous were teenagers and dogs. And like teenagers, I don't know, like maybe they're just trying to like prove themselves or something and be tough. But like the real hardcore gangsters, like you're just like not even worth their time, They don't need to like try to like pick fights with missionaries. And a lot of times they're really cool to missionaries. We worked with some of them and things like that. And when we got our bike stolen, we called them up and said, hey, like, if you guys see our bikes around, can you let us know? And they're like, oh, we'll get them. And we're like, no, don't hurt anyone. We just want our bikes back. And so it was kind of fun. But yeah, so teenagers, just avoid them, but don't look afraid. One of the best things that I learned was if you see like a group of kids like walking down the street at you, don't cross the street because that like shows that you're afraid. Approach them with pass along cards in your hand and try to convert them because that will scare them. If you're more forward and things like that and say, hey, we're missionaries, like we want to share this message with you, they'll kind of just like totally be like, whoa, like withdrawn and like they weren't expecting that. So that's something I learned, is just have confidence and walk with a quick pace. But in terms of dogs, we'd always have U-locks, which are good because they're like, if you have a little bike lock, they'll get busted and your bike will get stolen. But the U-locks are solid for that. But we'd also keep them around our handlebars. And so that way, if our dogs did come, we'd be able to pull off the U-locks and like defend ourselves. I only did that a couple times. But you can outrun them sometimes if they're small. We even did get pepper spray, and like it didn't really work too well. But yeah, dogs are probably like kind of one of the biggest threats. I don't want to like paint stereotypes, but I have heard of missionaries like getting held up and even like getting jumped and things like that. There's one story I've heard of missionaries who got jumped by a group of teens or whatever, and like they were just like kind of like on the street like trying to recover and stuff, and the teens were coming back for more, but they were downtown and like homeless people actually came and like formed a ring around the missionaries to help protect them. And so it was just really cool. Yeah, we'd hear gunshots a lot. I remember, I think, calling on Mother's Day, talking to my aunt. I just like went out, like we had this like little porch, and I was just sitting out there with the door open or whatever, talking to her, and like there were gunshots going off. She's like, "Are those gunshots?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah," like it just kind of becomes normal. Like I remember a couple times like kneeling in companionship prayer, like during planning or like right at the end of the night, and we'd hear gunshots like right outside our door, like while we're praying, and so we'd just be kind of like, "And please bless them," type of thing. Like, but there was a real transition in like my experience. Like I said before, that I was like kind of scared, like going out there. I don't know if you're not scared, there's something wrong with you. Like you should have a little bit of anxiety because it keeps you on your toes. But there was this real fear, and like the weekends were the worst because that's when like things would get the craziest. We hear the most gunshots. I remember riding home at night back to our apartment, and we'd hear gunshots over here, and so we'd say, okay, let's go this way. And then we'd hear gunshots over there, and then we'd say, okay, let's go this way. So we were kind of like doing a maze, like trying to avoid where we heard gunshots or whatever. But eventually, like I started to get kind of used to it, and things would start to happen, and I started to think like, this is kind of like an adventure. Like, we're like running from dogs, we're like seeing like groups of kids, and we're like trying to avoid them, and like it just became kind of fun, I could say, where it was just kind of like the craziness of Detroit. And so I started to kind of like look forward to weekends, because I'd say, oh man, like what crazy thing's going to happen this weekend? It would create a good mission story. That's what I was about. And like I'd like look for bullet shell casings on the street and things like that, and be like, this is so cool, like Detroit's so crazy and so rough and things like that, and kind of just like being like, man, I'm so tough because I'm here and I'm white, and this is just crazy, but I'm okay, But then it really switched for me because I think we were coming home, and we were riding home with actually some like illegal immigrants. They were giving us a ride back from the chapel, and we were at an intersection, and we saw a guy walking across the street, and a car just totally hit him and like ran over him and then just sped off. And we were like, what should we do? Like, maybe we should get out and help. But the people we were with were like, no, we can't get out. Like, they couldn't get involved with anything because they were trying to, like, you know, stay low from the cops too. So they just kept driving, and it was on a weekend. And so that's when I just started to realize, like, you know, this isn't fun. Like, every gunshot you hear, like, there's maybe someone on the other side of that. It's not an adventure. Like, it just became like really sad and started to weigh on me. And then that kind of transferred into anger. I just get mad at people for like being dumb. Like, I remember someone answering the door with like a bottle of beer in their hand. It was like probably like a 18, 19-year-old girl, and like you could tell she had like 1 or 2 kids like behind her in the house, and she was just like totally drunk. And I was just like so mad at her because I was like, can't you see what you're doing? Like, you're drunk, you have little kids, they're like looking up to you, you're not taking care of them. Like, I was just like, I was mad, but I like kind of held it in, and I was just like kind of did the normal missionary thing. But I just remember getting really mad, and even coming home from my mission, like being just so like angry at like the inequalities and like all the bad things that I saw and that were happening and things like that, and like wanting to fix it. And like maybe that's maybe why I studied sociology, is like, I want to change the world, I want to fix Detroit. But I think a lot of that anger is unhealthy, and I've started to transition it into love, and just realizing like that, like kind of letting go and like still wanting to make a difference and help, but letting, like saying like Detroit is in God's hands, and he'll take care of it, and I can help, but it's almost like when you see the bad, it's almost like a pity and a compassion, like, but it's not fun. It's not like, there's no apathy, like, oh, it's hopeless. There's no anger, but it's just kind of love. I don't think any missionaries, I don't think they've been killed. I know they've, like I said before, I know they've been held up, gunpoint, like, usually just give them your stuff or whatever. And I know they did, like, even some Spanish missionaries after I left, they got jumped, and one, like, I think got his jaw kind of shattered and had to have it wired shut, and maybe a couple broken ribs and things like that, because the people were trying to steal their bikes. And they were in a trio too at that time, so, but they closed down the area for a couple months. I can't remember how long, but